concerns. We are offering the option for the public to participate through Zoom if preferred. Instructions on how to attend virtually are included in the city council calendar item listed on the front page of missionks.org. The public is also invited to participate in the meeting. If you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read out loud, or note that you would like to speak and we will call on you shortly to make your comment verbally. Please remember your comments or questions are visible to everyone in the meeting. If you are part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand but stay seated and we will call on you to go to the lectern to make your comment. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Also, please be conscientious of others trying to speak and speak slowly and clearly. This meeting will be recorded and posted on the city's website at missionks.org. And please contact the administration offices at 913-676-8350 with any questions or concerns. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment now? All right, we will move into our CDC agenda. Public presentations. We do not have any public presentations or hearings this evening, so we will move into our action items. Number one action item is acceptance of the July 7th, 2021 Community Development Committee minutes with Audrey McClanahan.
Thank you. These are the Community Development Committee minutes from July 7th, 2021 for your consideration, please. Thank you.
Recommend acceptance.
All right. Everybody okay with that? So, consent agenda. Number two, the next item is the Neff property sinkhole repairs from Brent Morton.
We're good? Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. During a heavy rain event in April 2021, a sinkhole was observed by staff at the former lot of Neff Printing. It was at the east end of the lot. It's currently owned by the city. A section of pipe rated a 3 in the city stormwater inventory had failed. This is also CMP pipe. Once the sinkhole was observed, staff placed a steel plate over the hole. It was not a danger to the public or created any kind of parking issues or anything like that. So the recommendation was to take this project out to bid to try to get a better cost. The project went, well, first it was discussed with GBA to come up with a design to address the bend in the pipe where it failed to put a junction box in. Got a design from GBA. Took the project out to bid, sent it to 4 contractors that we've used before for this kind of work. GB Construction was the lowest qualified bidder. We've also used them before on other street projects and curb projects and been happy with their work. Staff is recommending approval for a contract with GB Construction for a cost no greater than $27,089. The available budget for this project is $1,247,050 in the stormwater utility fund. Staff is recommending that we move forward with this project and get this section of pipe fixed and the sinkhole addressed. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Brent. Is there any comment from the governing body on this item? Yeah, Ken.
Hi, Brent.
Hey.
It seems like these are happening more and more frequently.
Yes.
Is there any point in possibly having an on-call contract for these kinds of events so that we don't have to go through that process, or how would you recommend?
So we've been discussing that internally and just haven't had staff time really to go through those kind of contract documents and get something out to bid. But I would say in the next year or so, that discussion is going to be had, and you'll probably be seeing something like that come across, because it's with the sinkholes and stormwater issues also, but we're also moving into 2022 and having hopefully some available money for curb and sidewalks, of having those contracts in place so we can just have a set price and move forward with these projects. You know, we've got condition assessments on almost everything in town now. So we can start chipping away at some of the stuff that's just falling apart. And the sinkholes, to your point, that keep showing up, they come in swings. They always have, but this year we had those 2 or 3 weeks of heavy rains, and they don't always show up right away. It takes some traffic to hit them and stuff like that. So sometimes they're a month or 3 weeks down the line, and then they start showing up around town. But we've definitely had those conversations internally, and probably be working towards that in the future where you guys will see something like that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, if there are no other comments, I'm ready.
Actually believe
Go ahead.
Councilmember
Yeah.
Flora has one. Yeah.
Sorry. I was wondering, I saw that this one was rated a condition of 3, and then on our next sinkhole agenda item, part of that was rated 3 as well, which is fair in our ranking system. Is there any concern about our inventory and rankings given that? Are these surprising with the fair rating?
So I don't think so. So I'll try to address that in 2 parts. So the Neff one specifically, it was bad install. So the rest of the pipes in that 3 condition, but instead of putting a junction box where it was designed, where it should have been, they just kind of shoved 2 pieces of pipe together. And that's where you see those failure rates, is why everybody's putting junction boxes in now, because you don't want to put 90s, you know, you want to give space for that water to turn and collect debris. And then the one we had on Lamar that Laura will be speaking about next. You know, the difference between a 3 and a 5, I mean, technically the 3 is probably going to last longer, but if you get 3 or 4 inches of rain, I mean, it's still that CMP pipe that's, you know, a 3 still got some rust in it, and, you know, the integrity is kind of still there, but if you know, if it's undersized and it's rated a 3 and just taking that much water, it can expose those problems or problem areas quicker. And usually it's not the whole run that fails, you know, because I mean, they send a camera down, but it might be just a 5-foot section that just finally gave out, and that brings everything down. And then we try to address that whole section since we're digging up the road or slip line in the section. So, I mean, if it was a 1 or 2, I'd be worried, but those are mostly concrete. So, I mean, CMP's just kind of across the board, and, you know, they got to put some kind of rating with them, but it's just hit or miss. But the 3s, that's just kind of been the last couple, but sometimes it's just design flaws too that cause these problems.
I'd go ahead and recommend that we take this to council on consent.
Thank you.
All right, the last item this evening is a resolution ratifying emergency expenditures for repairs to the intersection at 52nd and Lamar with Laura Smith.
Mr. Chair, I would like to let you know that Councilmember Inman did text me, and she's working remotely in Topeka this week. So she is actually here in the meeting, but she's participating via Zoom. So, okay, so again, due to heavy rain events back in June, we had a section of 15-inch CMP pipe that failed underneath the intersection of 52nd and Lamar. Unfortunately, this is in an area of high traffic, and we did not have an opportunity to take it out to bid like we did with the sinkhole on the Neff property. We advised the council of it, and staff worked to get emergency repair costs from Kissick Construction Company. And the cost came back. I actually signed the authorization for the emergency repair of that stormwater pipe in part because we needed to get that done to coordinate it with Water One work that was being done in that same area. The expenses came in at $45,605. And so in accordance with our city code, we're seeking ratification of that emergency expenditure by the city council, and expenses would be paid from the stormwater utility fund.
Does anybody have any comments on the governing body? No. Well, I recommend putting this on the consent agenda if everybody else is all right with that. Okay, sounds good. Laura, are there any department updates for the Community Development Committee? All right, sounds good. It is now 6:41 p.m. and with no further discussion, that concludes the meeting of the Community Development Committee. Again, this video will be being public on our website at missionks.org. Thank you. We will now switch over to the Finance and Administration Committee.
Thank you, Trent. It is now 7:42, and I'd like to call this meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee to order. This meeting is being held in person, but in consideration of the ongoing COVID-19 health concerns, we are offering the option for the public to participate through Zoom, if preferred. Instructions on how to attend virtually are included in the City Council calendar item listed on the front page of missionks.org. The public is also invited to participate in the meeting. If you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read out loud, or note that you would like to speak and we will call on you shortly to make your comment verbally. Please remember your comments or questions are visible to everyone in the meeting. If you are part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand, but stay seated and we will call on you to go to the lectern to make your comment. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Also, be conscientious of others trying to speak and speak slowly and clearly. This meeting will be recorded and posted on the city's website at missionks.org. Please contact the administration offices at 913-676-8350 with any questions or comments or concerns. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment now? If you would go to the lectern and give your name and city of residence.
Hello, I'm Anna Lariat and I'm a resident of Mission. This evening, I'd like to submit a letter to the City Council that is signed by all members of the Park Recreation and Tree Board to the issue of impacting, modifying, adding to, changing parks, and kind of urging you to work with us in that process and continuing to make that a process. So, thank you.
Okay, on what level? Are we talking about the comprehensive master plan? What part?
So as it specifically is dealt with in adding to your supplemental budget to create a dog park at this point in time, PRT did not have a plan for that and it did not understand that that was being brought forward. And that's what prompted this letter.
Okay, great.
You want to give it to Audrey, if you would, please. And I would just have one question, clarification, if you would, Ann. So was this letter something that was discussed and voted on by the PRT at your PRT commission meeting?
No, we created this, several members got together and did this at the urging of other members.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, we'll move to our public presentations. And we have one presentation this evening on our 2021 DirectionFinder survey results. And Laura Smith, will you please introduce our presenter?
Yes, thank you. Pleased tonight to introduce to you Jason Morato with ETC Institute, who you've met via Zoom earlier in the year, but we get to have him live and in person this evening to present our 2021 DirectionFinder survey results. DirectionFinder is a survey, and he'll share some more information, but the City of Mission has conducted DirectionFinder citizen satisfaction surveys since 2007. So 2007, 11, 15, and again in 2021. So with that, I will turn it over to Jason, and he's got a presentation for you. If anyone's interested in a hard copy of the presentation, I do believe we have some extra copies on the table up here this evening.
Great. Thanks, Laura. Let's see if I can figure out how to get my presentation up here. Oh, sorry. Seems so easy when you showed me how to do it.
No, we don't.
Great, thanks. My name is Jason Morado. I'm with ETC Institute, and ETC is a marketing research firm. And the thing we specialize in is conducting community surveys for local governments. And we just finished for the 4th time conducting a community survey for the city of Mission. So today I'm going to go through the high-level findings from the survey. The full report is very detailed and comprehensive. So today what I'm going to focus on are really what we find are the key findings from the survey. Just a little background about ETC. We're based in Olathe. We're one of the nation's leading firms in conducting market research for local governments. We conduct community surveys all across the country. And in the past 10 years alone, we've conducted community surveys in more than 900 communities in 49 states. So this is really the type of work that we specialize in. This is just a quick rundown of what I'll go through today. I'll go over the purpose and methodology of the survey. What I call the bottom line up front is our main conclusions from the survey. And then I'll go through the survey findings to show how we came to those conclusions. And if anyone has questions, I'd be happy to answer those. If you want to wait till the end, you can, but also feel free to jump in if you like as I'm going through these. So there are several reasons to conduct a survey like this. One is to get an objective assessment of how satisfied residents are with major city services, and then also to determine what Mission residents feel are the top priorities for the city. With this survey, we're also able to measure trends from the previous surveys. This is the 4th time we've conducted the survey, and each time we change some of the questions, but some have also been the same each time so that we can measure trends. And then we're also able to compare your results with other communities across the country. So this survey was administered by a combination of mail and online to randomly selected residents throughout the city. Our goal is to receive at least 400 completed surveys. And just like in previous years, we had a very, very good response. We actually ended up with 560 completed surveys. And as we were administering the survey, we were monitoring the demographics of survey respondents to make sure it reflects the actual population of the city. So we made sure we had a representative sample based on key demographic factors such as age, gender, race and ethnicity, and geographic location. And the results of the 560 surveys at the 95% level of confidence has a margin of error plus or minus 4.1%. So essentially that means that if we conducted this survey the same way 100 times, 95 times the results would be plus or minus 4.1% from what we're reporting. So the results aren't perfect, but really it is a very small margin of error. Here we have a map of the city, and the red dots are households that completed a survey. So we had a good distribution throughout the city. And here are our main conclusions from the survey. We found that residents have a very positive perception of the city. Over 90% of respondents were satisfied with the overall quality of life and Mission. In a little bit, you'll see that's significantly higher than most other communities. We also found that the satisfaction ratings overall were similar to what they were in previous years. And that's a good thing because each time we've conducted the survey, your ratings have overall been much higher than other communities. And that was the case here once again. You rated above the national average in 30 out of the 40 areas that we compared, and in most cases, significantly higher. There are a couple of areas I especially want to point out. One is satisfaction with the overall quality of city services. And this is one of the most important questions on the survey because here we're asking residents to take into account all of the services that you're providing and really give an overall satisfaction rating for how well you're doing. And there you rated 22% above the national average. Another area that really stood out was the overall quality of customer service provided by city employees. Obviously, another really, really important question on the survey. And there you rated 25% above the national average. And then we found the top overall community priorities were the condition of neighborhood streets, condition of curbs, gutters, and sidewalks, police department efforts to create cooperative relationships with the community, fairness and impartiality of police when enforcing the law, the condition of park amenities, and then the availability of walking and biking trails. Sure.
I want to go back to the methodology for a second.
Sure.
What was the percentage response rate?
The survey was mailed to 3,000 randomly selected households. And the reason we picked that number is our typical response rate is 12 to 15%, but we had 560 completed surveys. So that divided by 3,000, so almost 20%. So first, we'll look at some general perceptions that residents have of the city. This was the very first question on the survey. Here we're asking residents to rate their perceptions of the city in a number of different ways. You can see the dark blue are residents who are very satisfied. The light blue is satisfied. The gray is neutral, and we interpret neutral as meeting expectations. It's a rating of a 3 on the 5-point scale. And then the pink are those who are dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. So the blue are the positive ratings, the pink are the red, the pink are the negative. So obviously the positive ratings far outweigh the negative for just about every single category. If you look at the top of the chart, over 90% of residents feel safe in Mission. Over 90% are satisfied with the overall quality of life. The third row is one of the areas that really stands out here. 81% of respondents are satisfied with the overall quality of city services. And that's compared to only 3% who are dissatisfied. So that is a really, really excellent ratio of positive to negative ratings for the overall quality of city services. Other areas that are rated high were the condition of housing in neighborhoods and customer service from city employees. The only area where the dissatisfied ratings outweighed the satisfied were how well the city's managing redevelopment activities. Here we asked residents how safe they feel in various situations. Obviously, very few residents feel unsafe in any of these scenarios. Almost 100% of residents feel safe in their neighborhood during the day, and then almost 90% feel safe in their neighborhood at night. And those are much, much higher than numbers than most other communities that we survey.
Could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
When we get into the unsatisfactory components, will we have information about what people said, indicators as to why they felt that way, or when will we be able to see that?
There weren't really any open-ended questions on the survey. One thing we can do is run some crosstabs and break the results out by different demographic groups like age, geographic location, and see if there are differences based on that. But there really wasn't a chance to write in open-ended comments.
Okay, thank you. I do too. Okay, thank you.
So here we have a map of the city, and what we did is we broke the results out by census block group. So these are very small areas. And what this does is it tells us if residents in different parts of the city are rating services differently or have different perceptions of the city. We create a map like this for every question on the survey asked on a 5-point scale. So there's almost 100 maps in the report. This one is for the overall quality of city services, and you can see the entire map is blue. In fact, we have one area in dark blue, which is the highest possible rating. So this tells us that residents in all parts of the city are satisfied with the overall quality of services. And it also tells us you're doing a great job providing services equally throughout the city. Sometimes what happens is even if the ratings are very good overall, once you break it into these small geographic areas, we'll have some pockets where residents are dissatisfied. So this is always a great sign when the entire map is blue. This map is for the overall value residents receive for tax dollars and fees. This is very unusual for this map to be completely blue. Almost always there are some areas where residents feel like they're not getting good value for their tax dollars. So this, for this question in particular, is really amazing when the entire map is blue. So we also compared your results to previous years. Overall, the level of satisfaction was similar. For this question, we're looking at perceptions of the city. The blue line are the satisfaction ratings for the survey we just completed. The gray are the satisfaction ratings for 2015, and then the pink are the satisfaction ratings for 2011. So these are the last 3 times we conducted the survey. If you look at the top of the chart for feeling of safety and overall quality of life, the ratings have gotten a little bit better each time, and they were very good back in 2011, but they've actually gotten better since then. The 2 areas where the ratings have decreased compared to the last survey were communicating about programs and services. That went down from 2015, but it's actually still a lot higher than it was in 2011. And then managing redevelopment activity. That's the area that had the biggest decrease in satisfaction on the survey. And then we also compared your results with other communities. So for this chart, the blue line are Mission residents who are either very satisfied or satisfied. The red bar are the satisfaction ratings throughout the Plains region. So that includes the states of Missouri and Kansas, as well as some surrounding states. And then the yellow are the satisfaction ratings from all across the US. So you can see that in most of these areas, your ratings are significantly higher than both the regional and national average. So for example, 94% of residents feel safe. The regional and national average are below 80%. That second row down is one of the most important questions on the survey. That's the one about overall quality of city services. You have an 81% satisfaction rating. You can see that's much higher than the regional and national average. You're rating much higher also for customer service and the overall image of the city. If you look at that second row from the bottom, value received for tax dollars and fees, you have a 63% satisfaction rating, which might seem low compared to some of the other questions on the survey, but you can see that the regional and national average are both below 50%. So for that question, 63% is actually a really good number. The only area where you don't rate significantly higher than other communities is communicating about programs and services. That's the area that had a decrease in satisfaction this year, but you can see that still your ratings are right on par with the regional average and actually still quite a bit higher than the national average. Here we compare your results with other cities in the Kansas City metro area, and this is based on cities that we've surveyed over the past few years. And this includes about 30 cities in the Kansas City area that we've recently surveyed. So for this chart, the number to the left of the blue line is the lowest satisfaction rating for the Kansas City area communities. The number to the right is the highest. That green vertical bar is the average, and then that yellow dot is your rating. So you can see in just about every area, your ratings are much higher than average. For feeling of safety and quality of life, you're right near the top of the Kansas City metro area. Also much higher for the overall quality of services, higher for customer service, overall image, value received for tax dollars and fees. Communicating about programs and services is a little bit below, but pretty much on par with the average. So now we'll take a look at the top priorities. This is what we call the important satisfaction rating. And this analysis is based on two different types of data. First, we ask residents how satisfied they are with services. And that's the type of information we've been looking at. And then as a follow-up question, we ask which of these services are the most important for the city to emphasize. So the idea behind this is that those areas that have a combination of low satisfaction rating, but at the same time are ones that residents think are the most important, should be the highest priorities. So we're factoring in both of those two categories. This chart here is for maintenance. The two highest priorities are the condition of neighborhood streets, and then the condition of curbs, gutters, and sidewalks. Residents rate those as the two most important, and they're ranked 10th and 11th out of these 11 items of satisfaction. So at the bottom. The other area that was a high priority, but there's a gap between this and those top two, is the quality and timeliness of street maintenance and construction. This is really just a different way of looking at the same information. I prefer the numbers, but some people like this matrix better. For this chart, if you start to the right, those are the areas that are rated as the most important. And as you move left, the level of importance gets less and less. If you start at the top, those are the areas that residents are the most satisfied with. And then as you move down, the level of satisfaction gets less and less. So if you look in that bottom right-hand quadrant where it says opportunities for improvement, those are the ones that have that combination of low satisfaction and high importance. So neighborhood streets, curbs, gutters, and sidewalks, and then to a lesser extent, the quality and timeliness of street maintenance and construction. So this is the same type of information, but now focused on public safety. There are three areas that we identify as a high priority. That's the fairness and impartiality of police when enforcing the law, police department efforts to create cooperative relationships with the community, and then just overall efforts to prevent crime. And again, here's the same information, but on what we call the important satisfaction matrix, where that bottom right-hand quadrant are the highest priorities. And then this chart's for parks and recreation. Here you can see there are two areas that we identify as a very high priority: the condition of park amenities and the availability of walking and biking trails. And then one area that's a high priority, which is maintaining city parks and green spaces. And again, here's the same information, but shown on the matrix. So we have some other survey findings. Here we asked which amenities residents would most like to see included in outdoor parks. Residents could pick up to 5 items. You can see the top priority is permanent restroom facilities. About 2/3 of respondents picked that as one of the 5 most important. The other most important amenities were a dog park, upgraded shelter houses, native plantings, and more trees. Here we asked residents to indicate their main sources of information about city issues, services, and events. And you can see by far the top source of information is the Mission Magazine. Over 80% of respondents get information about the city through the Mission Magazine. The second highest source of information is the city's website. So this is a good sign that the top sources of information are coming directly from the city. Sometimes when we ask this question, like things like word of mouth or Nextdoor app will be some of the higher sources of information. Here we asked about sustainability programs that residents either have used in the past or would like to use in the future. You can see the top mentioned programs were curbside glass recycling, then recycling bins in city facilities and parks. Here we asked residents to rate the importance of various factors when deciding to live in Mission. So the dark blue means that was a extremely important reason in deciding to live in Mission. The light blue means it was very important. So the most important reason by far was safety and security. Other important reasons were the attractive and well-maintained community, the location within the metro area. People think it's a great place to raise a family, and then walkability and accessibility of the community. As a follow-up question to that, we asked which of these factors will have the most impact on deciding to stay in Mission for the next 10 years. So this is that same list of items, and households could pick their top 3 choices. So by far the top choice was safety and security. Other top reasons were the ability to age in one place, the affordable housing, and then attractive and well-maintained community. Here we asked what are the 3 most significant issues you think Mission will face over the next 3 years. So the top choices were affordable housing, maintenance of streets, which we saw as a high priority in the important satisfaction ratings, and then just receiving good value for taxes and fees. Here we asked residents which types of investments they feel are the most important. So the most important was maintaining neighborhood streets, which we saw was the top priority in that important satisfaction rating. Other high priorities were maintaining major thoroughfares, maintaining and improving city parks, which was also a high priority in the important satisfaction rating, and public safety services. And then as a follow-up to that, we asked, what was the maximum amount you'd be willing to pay to make these improvements? So 14% said they wouldn't pay anything, which means 86% of respondents would pay some amount. And then this pie just breaks out the amounts. If you look at the blue sections, 35% would pay more than $10 per month. If you look at the yellow, about a third would pay $6 to $10 a month. And then 18% would pay $1 to $5 per month. And then we asked which of these items residents feel are the most important for the city to pursue. So the top choices were additional pedestrian amenities along existing city roadway corridors to improve walkability. So this included things like seating, benches, lighting, building a walkable and bikeable community, and then improving parks and recreation amenities. And that is everything that I had. Just a quick recap. So we saw that residents have a very positive perception of the city. Most residents are satisfied with the overall quality of life. The ratings overall were similar to previous years, which is good because it means that once again, the ratings are much higher than other communities in most areas. In particular, what stood out was the overall quality of city services and then customer service from city employees. And then here you can see the top priorities, and this was based on that important satisfaction ratings. So obviously, overall, very, very positive results once again. And I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has. Sure.
Would there be any way to explore the question about how well the city is communicating about programs and services? It seems to me that we're doing a lot in terms of the magazine and the website, and I'm just confused in terms of why the perception is that information is not being communicated.
Right. There was a question in the survey that got into a little more detail, which I didn't share here, but we asked about some different aspects of communication. like efforts to keep residents informed about local issues, ease of locating information on the city's websites, the availability of information about programs and services. So I don't have that right in front of me now, but that is in the report.
And I think I would jump in here. I think one of the benefits of the DirectionFinder survey, and particularly the benchmarking data and the Metro benchmarking data, means that I can call Jason and say, tell me who scored above the average. And we can take the opportunity to reach out and have a better understanding of how they might be communicating or what things might be contributing to those scores. And I think there's an opportunity, if we really want to look at probably some cross tabular data that would say, in terms of demographics with age and other pieces, we might be able to break that down further to have a clear understanding of what some of that data means for us.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. We can do that. The other thing to keep in mind is this is obviously there's a lot going on just in general right now with school starting and COVID, and people aren't and sure who to turn to for information or who's providing information. So it's not unusual right now to see ratings for communication down compared to where they have been previously.
Anybody have any additional comments or questions? We have someone in the audience. Can you come forward, please? Thank you. Yeah.
I'll raise you.
And please give your name and residency. Thank you.
My name is Akara Regiment. I live in Mission. So I had a question, just how many households are in Mission total and why were only 3,000 surveyed? And then I'll go to my next one and then go back to my seat. But in terms of the lowest rating of redevelopment, can you define what topics were included in that category versus services? Because when I think of services, my definition might be different on how that was involved in the survey. Thank you.
As far as number of households in Mission, I know the population's around 11,000. So I'm not sure how many households, about 4. Okay. Right. And the reason we don't survey everyone, the reason we do a random sample is primarily for cost. I mean, certainly we could send a survey to everyone, but it would significantly raise the costs, and it wouldn't really change the accuracy of the data very much. It'd be slightly more accurate, but you pay a significantly higher price to do that. The only times we survey the entire city is if it's a very, very small city. 95% of the time when we do a survey, it's a random sample, just like we did here. The other question was about the wording of that one question. I can just look on the survey. I have it in front of me here. On that question, we just asked simply how well the city's managing redevelopment activity. So just how it was on the slide. Yeah, we asked about things like parks and sidewalks separately, so I don't think that would be interpreted as part of that. Yeah. Yep.
Anybody else have anything? Thank you, Jason. We appreciate your overview.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Just very quickly, as we close this out, we saw a very brief snapshot, as Jason mentioned, of all of the data that's available. So included in the city council packet was just the executive summary and this presentation, but there is a link to the full DirectionFinder survey report, which is close to 250 pages that's available on the website. So if anyone is interested to going out and taking a look at that, I would encourage you to do so. we, as we've touched on, we use and will use this information in the coming months and quite honestly, the coming years to help inform our budget discussions, to help our departments evaluate service delivery, program design. And it's going to be really important to take the time to digest the full survey results. You've just had them for a few days. Staff has had them for a few days longer than council has had them. But it's important to really understand how they work together. And I just wanted to use one quick example because Jason touched on that in his presentation. It is something that's certainly a topic that we've talked about. But one of the things that was an area of emphasis was fairness and impartiality in policing. And I say this because as I'm meeting with departments this week, I'm sharing some of the department specific results back with them. But if you look at the public safety satisfaction ratings, 61% of the survey respondents indicated that they were satisfied or very satisfied with that. And I think what that, obviously we want to explore that, but I think what that tells us is that we have a fairly high level of satisfaction, but it's an area for continued emphasis. And so that's where, as we continue to work through these, again, same thing with cooperative relationships with the community and the police department. If you look at just those scores, 69% of the respondents said they were satisfied or very satisfied. And so we look for those opportunities, as Jason said, where we have maybe fairly significant neutral responses as people in the community that we can reach or impact in some different ways. But we look forward to continued discussion and coming back to this document over and over and over again. So thank you for the opportunity to continue to survey. And we look forward to opportunities for improvement. Yes.
I believe that was one of the new questions, was it not? It was not something that had been asked before.
Correct. That was an addition to the survey this year.
Yeah, I just have one question because you mentioned the budget. We've got lots of folks in the audience tonight. Could you give a reminder of when we'll be discussing
Yes.
the direction finder in connection with the budget for if folks are interested?
I forgot all my notes. This is a hazard of me jotting down things. So yes, so the next opportunity where we'll really come back and marry these direction finder survey results up with our budget conversations that have been ongoing, we need to set that date. And so now might be a good time to pause and do that. One of the things that's an outstanding step in our budget process is going back, and we've had a list of supplemental project programs and priorities that have been submitted both from the departments and from the city council, but we have not officially programmed any of those into our final budget. And so we need to do that as we move into final budget adoption in September. Typically, I think we would look to our work session, the fourth Wednesday work session date, but I know we have at least one council member who I believe is absent that date. Is that Councilmember Flora? So would be open to suggestions about when we might do that and have that really concentrated focus, because in particular, and I believe several people are here probably in relationship to the dog park, but the dog park is one of many supplemental program requests that are included. And so we'll discuss that in detail as a part of that meeting. So I don't know if anybody wants to suggest any alternative dates. Ideally, I mean, I think yes. Let me just answer that question briefly. Yes, because our September 1st committee meeting, we would be ideally bringing back that final recommended budget.
I think we need to move forward, and if Solly can come by phone via Zoom or some other, because everybody else is available that night. Is that correct? The 25th?
Are you available at all? Okay.
I'm going to be on vacation, so I'm not, I can't remember where I will be that day.
Is the 11th, which would be next week?
Tuesdays generally work.
We have a meeting on the 17th, a public hearing on the budget, correct?
No, we actually have a town hall meeting on the street sales tax
Okay.
on August 17th.
17th, okay. Could we piggyback on that, or we want to keep that separate?
You could have a work session prior to that. We've set that town hall meeting for 7 PM. So if you wanted to have a work session ahead of that, we could certainly do that. Okay.
Or before the council meeting on the 18th. Otherwise, if I'm the only one that the 25th is a problem, but if we could do like 6 o'clock, I don't know how long we're thinking, but on the 18th before our regular council meeting.
Does that work?
Works for me.
Okay, so let's
So-
plan on 6 PM. We'll have a work session at 6 PM on Wednesday, August 18th, where we'll focus on finalizing those capital and supplemental requests in the 2021 and 2022 budgets.
Okay, good.
And thank you, Councilmember Flora, for that. You would have to have a hard stop at 7 PM. I think it gives us a good opportunity to start. And then if we need to potentially have a follow-up meeting that Councilmember Flora is unable to attend on the 25th, then we will at least have started that discussion. Is that acceptable?
Mhm.
Okay.
Thanks, Laura. Next, let's move into the action items. And the first action item is the acceptance of the meeting minutes from Audrey McClanahan.
Thank you. These are the July 7th, 2021 Finance and Administration Committee minutes for your review.
Comments on the agenda? Accept? Thank you. The next agenda item or action item is a Consolidated Fire District Number 2 Street Solicitation Application, also from Audrey.
Thank you. Yes, Consolidated Fire District Number 2 and IAFF Local 1371 submitted their street solicitation application to do their annual boot block at Johnson Drive in Broadmoor, with the proceeds going to the Muscular Dystrophy Association. That'll be from September 3rd through the 5th. The application has already been submitted and approved by Chief Madden, and their certificate of insurance has been submitted as well.
Thank you, Audrey. Any comments or?
Great program, and I recommend we take it to council on consent.
Great. Thank you, Audrey. Okay, now we'll move into discussion items. We have 3 discussion items this evening. The first is the 2021 Sales Tax Renewal Information Campaign, and that would be Laura Smith.
Yes, thank you. And I think Emily's going to pull up the webpage that was launched last week. We just wanted to take this opportunity tonight to publicly kick off our informational and educational efforts around renewal of the street sales tax, which will be done via a special, special mail ballot election in September. We had hoped to be able to share the video. We hit a little glitch this week, but it's coming in the next day or two. So, but we were able to launch last week an informational page on the city's website that talks about the purpose of the sales tax. The council authorized putting that forward for renewal at an increased rate from 1/4% to 3/8% via the mail ballot election in September. And that increased rate was driven by really months and months and months of work at looking at the condition of our street network and estimating costs and building a plan and a program to help address those needs. As we saw in the DirectionFinder survey, street maintenance was the #1 priority for residents in our community, and also the area where they would be willing to make an increased investment. in that process. So there's a lot of detail on this website that will talk about how the street program was developed. There's a frequently asked questions section that anything and everything you wanted to know about the sales tax is available there and via some drop down boxes. And so we hope that people will take advantage of the opportunity to go out and review that information and educate themselves about the upcoming election and the importance of that as a part and a piece of our infrastructure and ongoing capital improvement programming. As I mentioned, we will have an informational video that will be available here very soon, and we will be doing, the plan is right now to hold a town hall meeting on, as we were just discussing, on Tuesday, August 17th here at the community center at 7 p.m. Our hopes are that COVID will still allow us to feel comfortable meeting in person, but we have always and will continue to offer some virtual town hall meetings as well. So for folks who are either unable to attend that evening or uncomfortable attending in person, we'll have an opportunity to learn more, ask questions, and all of that. So happy to answer any questions that you all might have or share any additional information you think would be relevant at this point. But we're excited to get this kicked off. Mail ballots will be coming to all active registered voters from the Johnson County Election Office the first week of September. The last day to register to vote for this mail ballot election will be August 31st. So we will be also putting out some information and educational materials around that. And then mail ballots will be due by noon on Tuesday, September 21st. The current quarter-cent sales tax is set to expire in March of 2022. So the timing of this election was approved so as not to allow for any interruption in the collection of that sales tax and to allow the street maintenance work that we have underway to continue as planned.
Any comments or questions? Thank you, Laura. Next, we have the second quarter project status updates, and that would be Laura also. Thank you.
Well, you're going to get me for a very short period of time, so lucky. We started back in February of this year bringing forward quarterly updates for you so that we could keep you better connected to kind of the ongoing status of the projects and priorities that had been identified over the course of the year. So in February, we gave really what amounted to the recap for the 2022 year. And then in May, we looked at first quarter of 2021. And so we're here this evening to share kind of progress through the second quarter of 2021. There's a lot of information that was included in the report that was in your packet. We are not going to cover all of that in detail, but I have asked each of our department directors to pick the project that they felt was most important to highlight this evening. And so they'll have an opportunity to share those highlights with you. And then we're certainly available to answer questions about any of the other projects that you might have. So we're going to start with Brian Scott.
Okay, thank you. I honestly don't really have any projects to highlight for the first half of the year, but I thought I'd spend some time going over development projects because that has been kind of front and center in the community development department for the past 6 months. I'm just going to highlight a few projects around town. 5399 Martway Street. That's the Mission Bowl project. That is on target. Their final development plan was approved earlier this summer, June meeting, I believe, Planning Commission meeting. We also revised their development plan to extend their timeline. So now the expected date for demolition of the bowling alley is September 17th. And they are well aware of that, and they are striving to hit that deadline. So I expect actual construction drawings to be submitted to the city the next couple of weeks. We'll begin the plan review, and there'll be a pretty lengthy process of a demolition permit, land disturbance permit. You'll see a construction fence going up around the site. You'll start to see crews mobilized on the site, all kind of targeting around the September 17th date. You won't see the building come down September 17th. I'll be honest with you on that, but you will see activity on the site and they'll begin remediation of the building just in terms of being able to salvage whatever they can out of the building to reuse elsewhere. That's part of the LEED certification process. One of the criteria, if you will, in that certification process is being able to salvage whatever can be salvaged out of the existing building that's about to be demolished. So there'll be quite a bit of that kind of activity going on through September. Behind that site is the Martway lift station that's operated by Johnson County Wastewater. We talked about that when we were talking about revising their schedule. There's actually quite a bit of updating going on at that lift station right now. They're replacing old tanks. They're doing some interior work to create more distance around the new tanks for safety reasons. Then there's updating fixtures and whatnot. You can't really see the activity because it's behind the bowling alley. You have to kind of look around. You drive down Martway, but there is construction trailers back there and the area is kind of fenced off. So that will be a little bit of a challenge with the Mission Bowl project. Just kind of, you basically have two construction projects going on the same site at the same time. So we're working through all those details. 5438 Johnson Drive, that is the former Pride Cleaners building at the corner of Knoll and Johnson Drive. That was approved last winter to be a Wings by Jefferson, and they're going great guns now with that project. A lot of the work to date has been removing soil because it was a dry cleaners. The soil was contaminated. That was actually identified by the Kansas Department of Health and Environment as a contaminated dry cleaning site. It was on their list. So the contractor's been working with KDHE to go through the process of remediating that soil. They removed about 18 inches of topsoil from that site and they replaced it with clean soil. And then they've also been doing quite a bit of work in the building itself, just cleaning it up. And they'll begin doing site work, which will be creating parking spaces along Knoll, closing the drive off of Johnson Drive, widening the drive off of Knoll, and then it's doing a lot of work around the site itself.
Can we get access to that environmental data? It's perchloroethylene that's in the soil. I'd like to see what the levels were.
Yeah, I can call KDHE, see if they have anything on file and reach out to the contractor. You bet. 5641 Outlook. This is First Baptist Church of Mission. Caught on fire late winter, quite a heavy fire. They've been working with their insurance company to settle up on that fire and to get the proceeds. They finally got the proceeds a few months ago. And they have submitted a demolition permit to the city to demolish what was the original chapel on that site. That was that middle building between the newer chapel to the south, and then kind of a community building or church building on the north side. So they're demolishing the original chapel as well as that building on the north side. They're going to create a new parking space on that site. It'll be landscaped, it'll be surfaced. And then the proceeds will be spent kind of cleaning up and fixing up the chapel on the south side of the property. There was quite a bit of heavy water damage and smoke damage, not so much fire damage, but a lot of water damage and smoke damage.
So Brian, the part that's still left open with the roof caved in, is that the part that they're going to demolish?
Yeah. Yeah. I think they applied for a demolition permit like in the last week or two. So it's going to
I'm
have,
just surprised that the roof's still, no tarp or anything over it.
yeah. 5830 Knoll, which is right around the corner from Wings by Jefferson's. That is a dental office, and that is going through a complete remodel renovation. It was kind of a mid-century style building with a flat roof and kind of small windows, and it's going to be a new building with a kind of sloped roof and much more modern design. So it's just complete, taking it down to studs and rebuilding it up again. And that'll probably be done, I would imagine, in the next couple of months. 6809 Johnson Drive. That is the former Pie 5 Pizza and Potbelly restaurant that sat there at the corner of Johnson Drive and Barkley. The Potbelly restaurant went out of business a few years ago. Then the Pie 5 closed last summer. I think it was unfortunately kind of a victim of the pandemic. That building has been purchased by Total Access Urgent Care, and they've been doing extensive remodeling in there. They're about done with the remodeling, and they'll be opening up probably September. So 6100 Broadmoor, that is Target. Target has been going through a remodeling and update of all their stores across the nation. They had submitted plans to the city about 2 years ago for remodeling of the interior of the store here in the city. When the pandemic hit, they just kind of put a stop to everything. They have since restarted that project again. We've gone ahead and approved the plans. And the pods that you see sitting on the parking lot now are for storage of all the materials that will go into the remodeling. So just new fixtures and lights and ceilings and all of that. Those going to be systematically working around the store in sections. As you go into the store, you'll see an area kind of walled off or blocked off with plastic, and there'll be people behind there working on remodeling that particular area of the store. So it may be a little chaotic for the next year or so as you shop in that store, but the end result will be much nicer. As part of that project, and I got to give a lot of credit to Caitlin, she did well with this. She looked at the site and made suggestions to the architect and the Target to make enhancements to the site. And those were submitted to the Planning Commission last month and approved by them. We're going to be taking a sidewalk along the north side of the north side of the building, basically connecting 61st Street and Broadmoor to the road that goes behind Target and the Rock Creek Trail to provide access from the trail to the front of the store, put a bike rack in front of the store so folks can either walk or ride their bike to the store. We're going to be putting landscape islands in the parking lot just to kind of break up that sea of asphalt that's out there. And then replacing some of the dead trees on the south side of the building and making some repairs to the fence along the south side of the parking lot there. So I think it'll be a much, much nicer looking building overall when it's done. And then finally, we've just been doing a lot of remodels and additions throughout the community. We've probably had about a dozen building permits submitted in the last 6 months for a renovation, basement finishes, bathroom renovations, patios, just general improvements to homes. I think that's kind of where people are spending their pandemic money. Been sitting at home for the last year, kind of looking around the four walls, thinking, I like to do something with this. I have some money in my pocket, so that's nice to see. That's a good investment in our community, and that has amounted to about $700,000 in value overall for improvements. And today, as of July 30th, we've issued 230 building permits with a total value of $13.2 million in improvements. Happy to answer any questions. Yes.
Brian, can you give us an update on the planning position and how that's going to be?
Yep, I was going to do that at the end of the meeting, but I'll do it now.
Okay.
So we have 2 openings right now in the department, planner and then permit tech. So that was kind of an office assistant position. We struggled, frankly, to keep that position filled over the years. Audrey was our last office assistant, and she took an opportunity for promotion. Good for her. But we kind of reevaluated that position and really what we need out of that position. It was more of a permit tech. So somebody that can meet a citizen or contractor at the window, take in their application, review it, make sure it's accurate and complete. If it's something simple like a fence permit, which I issued at 5 o'clock this evening, right before City Hall closed, be able to look at it, say, yep, looks good, prove it with a counter and move on. So I think that'll be a big benefit to our operations. So we went ahead and posted that position on Monday, as well as the planner position. So both those positions are now open. We'll be taking resumes through the end of the month and then reviewing and interviewing shortly thereafter. Hope to get both those positions filled by October 1st.
Brian, Could you give me, sorry, I was trying to capture the addresses of the buildings you're going through. Could you tell me the one after the Baptist church demolition? What was the location or the address of that building?
5830 Knoll, that's a dental office.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Mhm. Yeah, just behind the BP station there. Mhm. Anything else? I don't know. I noticed some activity there this week too. I imagine they're probably cleaning it out and, but yeah, I've been meaning to reach out this week to ask somebody. That's a good question. Yeah.
Any other questions for Brian?
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So our last update, we received a couple bids on a tree maintenance project for $9,000 to prune and clear out dead trees at Broadmoor Park, and another $9,000 for Streamway Park. Since then, we received another bid from a contractor that's proposing a 5-year agreement for $30,000 in total, broken down into monthly payments of $500. The rationale behind it is that they would be doing a lot of front end work. He estimated $16,000 of tree pruning and removal in year 1, which would essentially be the end of this year in both Broadmoor and Streamway. And then his plan allows for consistent pruning monthly, as well as the ability to resolve down limb issues, which would likely come up over the next 3 to 4 years. So that'll be coming forward as an action item for council review and approval in September. In connection with trees, Mission's celebrating its 70th anniversary. So staff took the opportunity to engage the community in a challenge to plant 70 trees in the 70th year. So Mission residents, as well as Parks and Recreation, have combined to plant 27 trees up to this point, which is roughly 39% of our goal, and a little less than half of the year to reach that. So we're planning on posting, sending more push notifications later this month to continue to get that number ever increasing. So spread the word. It's pretty exciting. August closures. As you know, we're closing the community center for improvements. Some of those closure projects are going to be slide, resealing, caulking, and painting in the indoor pool, hardwood floor resealing, drywall repairs, handrails being stripped and repainted and sealed, grouting the locker rooms, the steam room, and the north bathrooms, painting the cardio free weight and concrete accent supports, sanding, restaining the south entry desk, painting the outdoor red curb, cleaning the vents, training on our brand new software platform, creating a couple training videos for equipment, and then applying another coat of the pool deck resurface. So we got our hands full. We're hopeful we can get all of that accomplished in the 2 weeks. We understand that this shutdown is not opportunity for the ideal amount of fitness workouts for some of our patrons. So we took that into consideration, have added fitness and aquatic options, both at the MFAC and at our outdoor parks. So we'll have 11 classes each week, so a total of 22 opportunities outside of the community center during that closure to participate in wellness activities. And as an added incentive to members and patrons, if you bring a friend with you from now until the end of the month, so this could be during our opening or during our MFAC and outdoor park opportunities, if you visit the community center 5 times, if you bring a friend with you, or if you buy a community center membership, we will enter you into your choice of 4 drawings, one of 4 drawings, one of which is a $100 gift card to Target, a $50 credit to the community center, a $200 rental credit to either the community center, outdoor pool, or parks, or a credit for a 2022 MFAC membership. So pretty good opportunity, hopefully, to spread the word, encourage individuals to not only exercise and participate in these fitness activities, but engage neighbors, friends, take advantage of the new equipment we have on site. Do you want to, are we having department updates at the end? Okay,
Ken, what were the dates of closure, please?
you bet. August 16th through the 29th.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We've pushed that out both by email as well as social media and have digital signage and hard copy messaging out for our patrons. Happy to answer any questions.
With regards to trees, I know that this is not part of the park program, but I'm wondering about the ash trees along Martway that are dead or dying. Is there any plan for removal of that, and whose responsibility is it?
I think there should be a plan for removal. I'm not sure who is ultimately responsible. I think between Public Works and myself, we can find a solution to that.
Are you talking about primarily across from Hy-Vee? Yeah. So those are on the block property. So we would probably need to work with, typically we would work with the private property owner to remediate those trees.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Pen.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to talk to you about our street projects for this year. Timely, since we're getting ready to go into our sales tax campaign. As far as our 2022 street projects, design is underway and preliminary plans will be submitted to us in September. One thing that we found is that originally we had preliminary estimates, but we actually walked all the streets with the designers and we found there's right of way isn't centered down the middle. So on one side, you may have right of way of 13 feet, the other side 6 feet. So the question is, when we do the full depth removals, we have to remove the driveways to tie back in. How far do we go back? Do we go to the right of way? Do we create an extra joint? So those are some things that could cost more money. We also found a number of street pavers in the driveways, the decorative ones that people have installed. So do we match those? What do we do there? We also have some landscaping that's right up next to the curb. So those are things we're working out, and we may not be able to do all of our 2022 projects depending on the budget. What we'll do is design them, get an estimate, probably do a bid alternate. And then if we don't get the projects done in 2022, we'll move some to 2023. So currently working on that. Excuse me. As far as 2021 projects, we sent out a letter to everybody telling them that we would start on, I think it was in July. And then the contractor notified us that they couldn't get the stormwater structures in the pipe. Everything's delayed for about a month. It seems like for COVID, all these materials, they say that they can't get to them for labor and other reasons. So now we're finally going to start on Monday. And we were going to start on 60th Street so we could do the stormwater work first, but now we're going to go to Dearborn. And Brent was out there today and he marked all the curbs on Dearborn and 63rd and 53rd Place. So you'll see the white markings to show where we're going to remove the curb. And then tomorrow, the contractor will put out the door hangers on Dearborn, telling residents, we're going to start work and you need to, don't park on the streets. We'll put out our no parking temporary signs on Friday. The contractor will start on Monday. Excuse me, my throat's kind of tickling tonight. So we don't know yet if the concrete work, they'll go to Dearborn and then they'll go to 53rd, or they'll start on Dearborn and then they'll come in and do the patching of the pavement. We don't know that yet, but we'll continue to work on that and just kind of keep it moving until we get the stormwater structures in. One thing I wanted to point out is that we've done a lot of patching in Millhaven, and some of the residents are asking, why are you patching? Why aren't you redoing my street? And so I wanted to remind everybody that we did a cost estimate, and it's a lot more expensive to do those full depth replacements in Millhaven. I think almost every street is a full depth except for Dearborn. So one reason that we're doing Dearborn is that we started, we didn't get our approval to begin design for 2021 till late. And a UBAS on Dearborn is warranted because it has a proper depth. And so if you look at the pavement, somebody may say, why are you doing that? It's rated poor, but there's other streets that are worse, but we need to do the full depth. So just a reminder, if anybody has questions, they can call, but you know, everybody, once you start seeing streets going, they're like, well, why aren't you doing mine? So I just kind of wanted to, we had talked about that earlier, but just kind of remind you of that. And if you have any questions or need more details, let me know. So I think that's all I have for streets. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Celia, on the ones that are scheduled for full depth, is there going to be any patching in the interim between now and when they're scheduled, like in 2022, 2023? Or are those just going to be allowed to remain as they are?
We're trying, Brent and I are developing like a systematic patching program. So one thing we tried in Millhaven is we're not just going to certain areas, we're doing the whole street, which takes a lot more time, but then we get that done. So what we're trying to do is go around and classify all the areas to see which ones are the worst and then kind of go through that order. And if it's a 2022 project, we would do some temporary patching if it needed to be, but we're trying to hold off on those streets that are going to be completely redone unless there's a big patch or a pothole.
Celia, I was just going to see if you could give an update on the sidewalk improvements for 51st Street and then the other improvements to speeding and the crosswalk there.
Okay, so I was going to send you an email because things change rapidly on 51st Street. So we had a meeting with some of the residents and Trent and Hillary and Laura and the police chief and I, and we talked about the sidewalks on 51st Street. And there's a lot of, it's probably one of the worst sidewalks in Mission because it's really cracked and those trees, some of the roots have caused the settlement and the breakage. And so we wanted to get that done before school started. Some of the trees we originally thought we needed to remove because the roots are the cause of the sidewalk, but one of the residents recommended an arborist who said that we could shave some of the roots. So we can actually save all the trees except for one, but the resident of the neighboring property called us and said that she would be willing to give us property to build the sidewalk around the tree so we could save this tree that's 100 years old. It's a bur oak and I guess it's a really good condition. And so now we're going to be meeting out there on Friday and with an engineer to try to figure out what we need to do. They're willing to pay for the relocation of the fence. So it's a really good, it's going to slow us down a little bit, but I think it's a really good opportunity to get, you know, to meet everybody's needs and still get the sidewalk. So we'll have to survey that and design it because we have ADA requirements. So I was going to send out an email as soon as I get a time frame on how long this is going to take. We've also looked at grinding all the sidewalks along 51st. We can do that entire stretch for $6,000. So it's not as good as removing the panels, but if you grind off the part where you have the settlement, you don't have the slip trip factor. So we were going to do that. Then we still have some panels, more panels, primarily west of Dearborn that we need to plan for our next stage. But we are planning to paint the crosswalk. We're going to do some upgraded crosswalk painting, and we want to get that done before school. And then there is a concern about speeding, primarily going westbound when you go down the big hill. So we were looking at putting in they call it a speed feedback sign, but it's similar to the speed radar signs that the police have been putting up where it'll flash your speed. So a lot of improvements along that stretch. I think it's going to make it more safe for students and pedestrians. So we're real excited about it.
Thank you, Celia, to you and Laura and Chief for all of your hard work. I know it hasn't been easy to balance all of our needs, but I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Debbie? I did, just because you mentioned the patching in Millhaven, I did want to note that I think it has overall been really well received. Yes, everyone would like more street work, but they're very happy about the patching and also the additional work on the north end of Outlook. I've heard about that from neighbors that folks are happy to have that done.
Good. Thank you.
just a quick comment. I've gotten more comments about your responsiveness and Public Works adhering to people's needs, and you're responsive. If you can't do it, you clarify why. And I think it's really gone a long way in us communicating with constituents on individual residential properties, streets overall. And I just want to personally thank you.
Thank you very much for that feedback. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the crime stats that for this quarter of the year and year to date. Generally still seeing a reduction in crime. When you look at those statistics, a lot of those categories show a 50% increase, 50% decrease, but when you're talking the difference between 4 and 2, it makes it look a lot worse than it is, or a lot better than it may be. So there's a few categories that I wanted to point out that we have seen some more drastic reductions in, and have a report that, and I think we talked before that in the sexual assault category, that encompasses several different offenses that aren't all traditional rape case. So there's child sex crimes involved in that, as well as sexual batteries and the like. So last year up to this point, we had 7. And this year, I'm proud to say that we don't have any reports. We've also seen a marked decrease in auto burglaries. That's a 58% decrease. Residential commercial burglaries are down almost 50%. We've had 9 reported this year, and a 30% reduction in battery cases. Our response time to emergency calls remains constant at a very quick 2 minutes and 56 seconds. We've seen a pretty dramatic reduction in DUI arrests, and I attribute that to, I think there's more peer pressure on people these days to not drink and drive, and there's so many more opportunities for people to get Ubers and ride shares and those kind of things that's really assisted our efforts in keeping our roadways safe. And the other thing that was of note is our juvenile arrests have decreased significantly this year. At this time last year, we had 15, and to date, we have only had 2. One of the other things that kind of stands out when you look at that is the clearance rate. The clearance rates appear to be a lot lower than they've been in the past. And that's attributed to several factors. One of which is we have had a significant increase in very in-depth crimes to investigate this year. There are some cases that, and in one instance, there was a drug overdose death that a detective has been investigating for over a year now. So these cases, to build these cases, and when you're getting subpoenas and search warrants, we have to prioritize. So it takes away from a detective's ability to investigate the lower level thefts and things like that. Another thing that we've noticed with our retail theft crimes is there have been some changes in policies at some of our retailers as far as their approach to apprehensions. So in the past, where maybe a loss prevention officer would call us and they would have either the name and identification of somebody or have them detained, we're not seeing that as much this year. And I think it's due to some changes in policies at corporate levels. And a lot of times when we would take a call, a theft call, where we had a suspect in custody or an identified suspect, they would report that along with 15 or 20 other instances that the same individual committed a crime. So that raises your clearance rate because you have to write a report on every instance of that. And that's just not occurring this year either. Accidents, injury accidents have remained fairly steady, but the non-injury accidents have increased fairly significantly. And I don't know how long we can blame everything on COVID, but there were a lot fewer cars on the road last year during lockdowns, and I think that probably has something to do with it. And so far this year, we've had 1 pedestrian-related accident. And when you look at our use of force, the first time that I prepared, it was January through April. So this one's just June through, or May and June. But up to this year to date, or a week ago to date, we had approximately 7,812 calls for service this year. So that's all contacts with the public. And we've had 17 use of force incidents. So still, I think that's 0.02% of all contacts we have with individuals result in the use of force. And the other thing to keep in mind is when we report the use of force, we also report a use of force as a RAP deployment. And what a RAP is that is usually what we would use for somebody that's in crisis, that needs to be restrained, but in a position that still allow for good breathing and just long enough to get them transported to a emergency department. So 4 of the 17 uses of forces we've reported are actually a piece of equipment that's just used to restrain somebody for their safety. And the other thing to remember in our uses of force is that 9 out of 17 of our uses of forces were on calls that involve person felony crimes. So, we're not often pulling people through their car windows or anything like that, just on a traffic stop. But so it is, the force has been appropriate for the incidences we've had this year. We have had 1 deployment of the less lethal shotgun, which was a very serious incident that could have been a lot worse, but thankfully through officers' good training and experience, they were able to diffuse the situation with very minor discomfort. So and I think the rest I will talk to you later about unless you have any questions. Yes.
Chief, can you clarify some of the terminology in your statistics that are reported? Society crime, what is a society crime?
So society crimes be things like drug offenses, prostitution, type of things that are just societally, there's no victim other than society, essentially.
Okay. And then the other question I had was with the columns that have 2020 year to date, is that column the crimes in 2020 as of this period? Is that why it's being used as year to date for comparisons?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And then the far right column where it says 2020 would be for the entire year of 2020.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to comment on your officers and how respectful they are. I had called a while back, this a couple months ago, and asked them to kind of do some maneuvering through around 57th Street because we have some people that were kind of speeding through there. So he stopped me for not stopping long enough. And he was very respectful. He said, someone called. I said, that was me. Anyway, he was very respectful. He said, I had to go feed the priest. And he said, I'll just meet you back at your house and explain why I stopped you. So I thought he was really respectful.
Well, it's good to hear. We do have a very good group of people working right now. Thank you.
I did just want to pull from the project update status report for mostly the good of the group. I know you all are very aware, but the facility conservation improvement program is up and running. It was approved by council in June, and that is an opportunity for us to make facility improvements. We will be working here in this building at Public Works, at City Hall and the police station, and upgrading our streetlights to LED. It's energy savings, and you use the savings on the utility bills to pay for the capital improvements. We're excited to have that kicked off. We had a kickoff meeting with the staff and point people from each of the facilities, along with many representatives from CTS Group that will be guiding us through that process. Similar to what Celia mentioned with COVID and lead times, we are, mapping out all of the different equipment that needs to be ordered for this project and scheduling it out. predicting and accommodating interruptions or even just inconveniences at the different facilities. So when we have a more fully baked schedule, we'll be sharing that back. But also, updating staff who are working in the building who may not have had this on their radar quite as high as some of the rest of us to really get ready for the improvements that will be taking place in each of our buildings. But did want to highlight that we are up and running and it feels real, and you'll be seeing more of that soon. So, thank you.
Thank you. I shared this with you before, but I just want to highlight that I think it's important with our LED streetlight improvements that we make sure that we provide yellow or soft lighting in the residential streets and not the blue lighting that you often see with LED, as it can be really disruptive to residences.
Yeah, we had great conversations with that and have flagged it from the beginning and do have some, industry standards and choices to evaluate to make sure that that is successful.
Well, as you all know, and I appreciate every single day, we have a great team here and there's a lot of work that gets done. And so thank you for giving us the opportunity to provide some updates. I'm happy to answer any questions if there's something else that we didn't cover that was included in the status update that you'd like to hear about.
I have a quick one. At the end of August or towards September, can we get an update on how we did with the market this year?
Yes, absolutely. And you'll hear a little bit more about that in department updates this evening. I do, well, no, I'll save that. So that's what we've got for you this evening. That information, as you know, the status reports out there online and available. So you all can review it, the public can review it, and then we will be back in November to share the next update with you.
Laura, I just had a question about the Water One project and the Lamar signage from Water One. I was driving north yesterday and noticed that all of the road closes here signs still start at Johnson Drive. And I was wondering if we're making any progress on getting, more effective detour signs on that stretch for the project.
You guys are good at stealing our thunder tonight. Yeah, Celia is going to give you an update on the Water One project when we get to our department updates.
I just wanted to say thank you for the report. It's a very thorough report. I like the way that you you keep your chronology of the information that you've reported before and then adding to it. Plus, I want to commend the chief for the statistics, the crime statistics, police statistics are very thorough, very informative, and really appreciate the detail that you've presented to us. Thank you.
Okay, I think we'll move to our last discussion item, and that is an update over the modifications and revisions to the current COVID-19 protocols and practices, and that would be Laura, please.
Yes, thank you. So one day, maybe we'll not be back in front of you every other meeting talking about COVID, but today is not that day. So as we know, when the county-wide mask mandate expired at the end of April, we made several decisions regarding masking requirements within each of our city facilities and for our various operations and within the organization. And those decisions impacted both our employees and the public. With the surge in COVID-19 cases that we are experiencing in Johnson County, primarily as a result of the Delta variant, but not only in Johnson County, but the metropolitan area and nationwide, the CDC recently issued updated guidance with respect to masking that was replacing guidance that had been issued probably about a month before related to recommendations for vaccinated individuals. And that updated guidance recommended masking indoors for those living in areas of substantial or high transmission, which Johnson County falls into that category. And quite honestly, the entire metropolitan area falls into that category. Although the vaccine seems to significantly reduce the risk of severe illness and hospitalization, the CDC's preliminary findings suggest that fully vaccinated people can contract the virus, can spread the virus to others. And so that's what prompted the revisions to their recommendations. In the packet, we provided the link if anybody follows on a regular basis, the Johnson County COVID-19 dashboard. You can see the trends. You can see that where back in May, as we made some of these other decisions, we were trending down in the yellow area. We are now trending back up into orange, and county fully expects that we'll be back into a red, kind of a red zone in the coming weeks. So effective immediately this week, we returned to mandatory masking at all times for city employees while indoors or while in a vehicle with another person. And that's just really a slight modification from where we have been. And that information has been communicated via email with the employees this week, and we're following that up with department meetings. So we have the opportunity to stand in front of each department and staff and give them a chance to ask questions or express frustrations. As I said in a meeting with the police department yesterday, I asked for a show of hands of anybody who had been really excited at any point over the last 12 to 18 months to be wearing a mask. And there weren't very many hands raised. And what I asked them to please note was that my hand was not raised either. But that this is really a continuity of operations decision for us. We need to be able to make sure that we can put patrol shifts out on the streets. And we need to be able to be sure that we can have public works crews that can patch our streets and lifeguards that can staff our pool while it's still open this season. So we know it's not welcome news for some, but our focus is really on protecting the health and safety, not only of our employees, but the public that we serve. So before you tonight, for kind of your discussion and decision, we have a couple of decisions relative to public in our facilities, and then protocols for our city council meetings. We included staff recommendations, which generally mirror the practices that have been in place since mid-May. And that is that masking for the public will be encouraged, but not required in all indoor spaces in our public facilities. So public areas, lobbies, bathrooms, courtrooms, when inside a rental space at the community center or when exercising at the community center. So probably the better way to say that is you are going to be required to wear your mask, for example, at the community center where we are today. Check in, get to your area, the mask can come off. Again, we looked at that primarily and I think had great success with the summer camp program, which will be ending this Friday. And helping to keep everybody safe. So we're recommending that we leave that in place. But masking for the public will be encouraged in indoor spaces and required in the following situations. So fingerprinting in the police department, and that's a proximity issue. When in non-public areas of city facilities, that doesn't happen very often, but if there's a need or an opportunity to invite a member of the public back to a non-public area of our facilities, and then again, in all common areas of the community center. And just a reminder that as Penn touched on, we've got 2 weeks this month that the community center will be open to the public, and then we'll go into that facility closure. So we will actually have no members of the public in this building for that last half of the month of August. Our staff recommendation is also that we continue council meetings here at the community center in person so that we have the opportunity to maintain appropriate physical distancing, but that all council and staff return to wearing a mask in that situation. Again, we continue to try to talk with and educate our employees. We still believe vaccinations are our best line of defense in order to maintain that continuity of operations. The vaccine is an effective layer of protection, and the mask provides another layer of protection. We have currently about a 73% vaccination rate among our full-time employees. So we are trending higher than the county vaccination rate at about 56.6%, which is positive, but really working on just kind of individual conversations to help understand hesitations or reservations for those who have not elected to get the vaccine. So those would open it up for discussion. Happy to answer any other questions.
Laura, I support the recommendations. The one thing I would consider wanting to discuss is when attending the public meeting, that bullet should probably be moved down to the required section rather than in the optional section, so that if members are attending, with exception of when they're speaking, I would say that it would be beneficial to have everybody masked.
And that was an original recommendation of staff in May. And that was something that the council elected to make optional or encouraged, move from the required to encouraged category at that time. So we left it consistent with that decision of the council in May.
I would like to revisit that decision.
Okay, absolutely. I'm just wanted to clarify that for everyone. Okay. So is that something we want to put
Well,
forward?
we can vote. I mean, it's a matter.
You can't take binding action, but I mean, this is really a
Well,
you
we
know,
could take.
policy decision. You can take, I think you can give some direction, and then if we want to put it
Correct.
for a vote on your August 18th meeting, we can certainly do that.
Okay. Are you asking for a straw poll?
That's not my prerogative. It's the prerogative
Well,
of
then
the
I will-
chair.
I can't understand you, I'm sorry.
I would like to recommend that we go ahead and get a straw poll on whether to move that bullet down to the required section
Okay.
before we go
And I
forward.
don't have a problem with that. I will tell you, I will wear one walking down the hall. If we weren't 6 feet apart and I hadn't been vaccinated, I would have one on. But if I've met those criteria personally, that's good for me. I'm not exposed. I don't have an exposure pathway, and I've been vaccinated. And otherwise, I would be out there. When I'm walking through that hall, I've got one on because I come closer. So I don't have a problem with a straw poll, but go ahead.
Would the straw poll to be whether we all agree with the staff recommendations as they are?
It's
plus-
going from optional to required. That's what Ken is asking.
So I think there would be two pieces, right?
Right.
So one would be, are you recommending, are you considering or supporting the staff recommendations as presented or not? And then there's the question of the modification of the requiring or mandating it for the public at a council meeting.
But to Laura's point, I think we have to decide whether we're ready to, if we're able to move forward or wanting to move forward with the staff recommendation or not. And then from there, we can decide whether we want to add that other provision further up. Am I?
Okay.
So I guess would we, oh, sorry, Debbie, I was gonna say, would we go from there if everyone looks, I saw a lot of head nods on that. So would
Right.
we go with yes to that and then a straw poll as to whether we want to have a vote to modify, to add that the public has to wear masks at meetings at our next meeting, at our council meeting? Is
As a
that-
requirement. right?
As a requirement?
Okay,
Would that be
sure.
the idea?
That'd be
Well,
great.
I'm confused because typically what you do is you modify what's here, you take a vote on that, and then
But-
you vote on the total package afterwards.
I think it's because we're in committee, so we're not taking binding action. So
Correct.
if there's consensus on the staff recommendation, then that could move forward, but we would make any modifications at our next meeting. Is that right?
But the staff recommendations include. the
Right. I think
existing-
we're overcomplicating it. So I think there's enough heads that nodded that said staff recommendations generally supported. So I think we can just then ask the question, what is the support for modifying that bullet that would move from encouraging to requiring masking of the public at a city council meeting?
That's basically what I'm
Yeah.
asking.
So I think that's the question that Councilmember Thomas, I think, was trying to say we were.
Right. Okay, so should we go first with hand raising on the current? Anybody who's in favor of the current staff recommendations where masks during public forums are optional as printed, please raise your hand.
No, that's not the question.
The second one is the modification.
Okay, well, I
Do we
think
want to
what-
modify
I think we,
first?
yeah, I think,
Oh, okay.
I think so. Maybe we'll back up. So the question is, I think there were enough heads that were nodding, which is what Councilmember Flora said for support of, in favor of maybe too strong of a language, but willing to support the staff recommendations as presented. I think there was consensus and head nodding. So good with that. So now the question is there support for modifying the requirement and transitioning from a recommendation to encourage to a recommendation to require masking by the public in a city council meeting?
Sure. Audrey, can you call the question, please?
Well, that's not a straw poll. So I think you can just kind of,
Okay.
I think that's where if everybody, anybody who is in support of making the masking for the public required as opposed to encouraged, can you raise your hand? Okay. There's your straw poll. Okay.
Could I propose an alternative talking point discussion?
See if Kristen wants to weigh in on that straw poll.
Laura, could
Please.
we please find out Kristen's take on it while she's on the phone?
Yes, we're trying to do that now. I'm sorry.
I could just say, rather than talking about it from a public standpoint, maybe we just vote on if we as the governing body should be required to wear masks and leave it at that. If it looks like we won't come to a consensus on the first question.
Well, the staff recommendation says all staff and council be required to wear a mask. All right, so we've got her elevated as a panelist, but she's still muted. Oh, there she is.
Hi, I didn't raise my hand. Sorry.
Thank you, Councilmember Inman.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll put that on for final decision at your August 18th, I'm sorry, August 18th city council meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that conclude the
That concludes with the item number
COVID-19?
6, yes.
Okay. Let's move to other, and Laura, I would ask you if you had any other department updates for the Finance and Administration Committee.
I do. We have a series of quick updates. So you get to hear from the department directors again, and we will start with the chief.
Good evening again. Just wanted to update you on a few things that have been going on recently. A few weeks ago, our officers teamed up with the Fairway Police Department and conducted reality-based training at a building, a vacated office building in their city, and focused a lot of that on de-escalation and actions under stress. So we really wanted to induce some stress so we could evaluate the decision-making under pressure. We also conducted our first block training of the year. Yesterday was our first session. That included AED, first aid, CPR, had a update from our co-responder, de-escalation, and taser recertification. And in other news, we are continuing our efforts for recruiting. As you know, we lost 2 officers recently, and we'll have 1 retiring shortly. So we are trying to fill shoes as quickly as we can so we can avoid disruption of our officers' schedule to make sure they have time away and don't have to be around as much and have that good decompression time. So we have had some success. A lot of our officers are recruiting for us. And it's worked out well. They're getting the word out that what we're trying to accomplish, and it's been successful so far. So we have a couple of conditional job offers out and in the background investigation phase on a few people. Yes, Paige will be going to the police academy in a few weeks, and she's going through department, all our policies and procedures and things like that we want to make sure she's familiar with to give her the best chance of success at the police academy.
Couple items. The MFAC is officially winding down its operations. So this is the last full week of full operations, beginning August 9th, running through September 5th. The modified operations will be Saturday and Sunday, Saturday 12 to 7 p.m. and Sunday 12 to 6 p.m. So get your last swims in on the weekdays this week. We've had great turnout, relatively higher numbers than 2 years ago, which is awesome. And I think it speaks volumes about people's willingness to get outside and just kind of decompress a little bit. Speaking of the MFAC, the spray ground from August 9th through September 5th will be available for free from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on weekdays, Monday through Friday. And then Saturdays and Sundays, it'll still be included as part of your paid admission. So there'll be no free access Saturdays and Sundays. And then I know all of you are wondering when we're going to reschedule the Mission Family Picnic. That is tentatively, you ready for this? October 9 is our ideal day. We still have a few individuals who have not weighed in, namely owners of the neighboring businesses. We feel confident that because they've taken this long, that they may not have any issues. So fireworks, the band, the food is all a go, and we're just waiting for a couple more check marks in the appropriate column. But October 9 is what we're shooting for. Happy to answer any questions.
Penn, did we have something scheduled for September? I want to say it was the food truck or the band that we had originally scheduled. Is that?
Thank you.
Thanks.
So if you've been down Lamar, you know that it's been shut down from work with Water One's transmission main. They've done a great job so far. They're trying to get the work done. They've got the work done in front of the school on 52nd Street, and they're moving down Lamar right now. This Friday, they're going to close down the intersection of 51st and Lamar. And right now, just the section of 52nd to 51st is closed. So drivers haven't been, I mean, it is, you know, inconvenient, especially when I'm trying to get to City Hall for a meeting and I always forget. But the intersection will be closed, and that's based on our knowledge and experience from last year's project on Lamar. We know that that's going to be where drivers will be frustrated because we have detour signs, we have message boards, we have many road closed signs, as you can see, but drivers still think that they can go up there. And so sometimes we have, like last time we had cut throughs through both the apartments on the east side and on the west side, the commercial area. So hopefully they'll get that done within the week and open before the 12th. There's a lot of utilities in the intersection, as we found out when we did our project. So we've shared the plan. So we're hoping none of that happens. And if not, they should probably be able to get done before that week closure. So we do have it posted on the website. Emily's done a great job of keeping everybody updated, and the Water One project manager contact information is there. So you can also refer it to Brent or I, and we can kind of give them an update. Did you, Sully, did you ask about no parking signs on Lamar?
No, I had just indicated that it still has the really way too early road close signs, like starting at Johnson Drive, and then the detours like not all that clear as to where, because there are so many false signs that you're like, oh, I can keep going, and then it's not clear when it really is closed until you hit the closure, like.
So we hire, or Water One hired a traffic control specialist firm to come up with a plan. And so they take on I hate to say, but they take on the liability, and they, have certain guidelines they have to meet. And there are a lot of signs, but the reason they did that is because if you miss the sign at Johnson Drive, you keep going. So they, their plan was to show more signs. So, hey, it's closed, it's closed. And so I would not recommend that we go against their plan, even though it is a lot of signs. I mean, people have plenty of warning is the purpose of that.
It also doesn't tell you where to go though, when it gives you that warning. So it's just like road closed, but it doesn't say, go west over to Fox Ridge or go east over to Knoll. So you either have to be familiar with the area or just kind of take a guess at it.
So they should have detour signs posted when they, that show little arrows. They're not as obvious, but they should show the detour route. And Emily has it on the website too, as far as the detour route. We could pull it up also, but that's how they designed it. They're just not as obvious.
Okay.
Hi, Celia. This is Kristen. What I think, if we could go ahead and get a sign saying for people to go over to Row, like on 55th Street, when they're going northbound on Lamar, because that's kind of the problem is they think that, okay, I've gone through several, I know because I live right on 52nd Street, and believe me, this is the last street and it's a dead end and people come through here like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't want residents or, visitors to our city to get frustrated. I just wondered if it would be appropriate to have like a sign at 55th and Lamar on northbound saying, turn here to get to Row, to get to I-35 or something to that effect. I am aware of the detours that you do have on Johnson Drive in Lamar.
So typically we, the guidance is to detour people to arterial streets as opposed to residential streets. That the plan, but a lot of people know locally that they can go through the local streets. But what we'll do is tomorrow we'll talk to Water One to see if they would be willing to show any kind of new detour route to get to Row.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Sure. All right, thanks.
I did just in answer to Councilmember Kring's question, but also had planned to provide an update on the market. We do have 4 more weeks. We'll go through August, each Thursday evening, 4:30 to 8. We've just had an exceptional season. We have the most consistent attendance and vendor attendance that we have ever had. We've had, you all know, but many market years where the average market vendor attendance was about single digits, let's just say. And this year, we're at 20 easily each week, and it's just incredible. And we're joined each time, even by new community tent participants, and we'll be seeing that in August as well. And really excited. We'll be hosting a vaccine clinic at the end of on the 26th. The mobile clinic from the county will be at our market. And the Parks Recreation and Tree Board, comp plan outreach, sales tax election outreach. So lots of just good chances, as long as we're safe, to continue the person-to-person outreach that we like to see. I did want to also highlight the fact that the Department of Agriculture has a consumer arm called From the Land of Kansas that highlights Kansas-made goods. And they are really a great support to us for our market. And they support farmers markets around the state as a tie to agriculture and locally grown items and locally made items. And they selected us for National Farmers Market Week, which is this current week, as kind of a standout social media presence. And so the Mission Market will be taking over their From the Land of Kansas social media account tomorrow. So look for our content even on a larger platform. They also highlighted our market within their newsletter. So we've just had a really warm response from them, and we're excited to play around with that tomorrow as well.
Okay, and last thing I have is, I know when we were in our last budget meeting, we talked about me taking the budget presentation to our various boards and commissions, and I had the opportunity to do that with the Sustainability Commission earlier this week, and I was kicking myself for not having done that in the past. It was absolutely a really tremendous experience. That group was, they're very attentive and engaged and informed, but very good meeting, and several compliments coming back from Sustainability Commission members about the fiscal responsibility and management of our elected officials and their city. So that's always great to hear. So that, I think, is all we have for this evening.
Does anybody have any comments or questions for Laura before we move forward? Okay, it is now 8:31 p.m. With no further discussion, that concludes the meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee. Again, this video will be made public on our website at missionks.org. Thank you for your attendance.